Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Flassball, and I'm here with Mr. Landry. He's a math teacher at Niskayuna High School. Opening day is just around the corner, and we're going to ask him some baseball questions. So, Mr. Landry, the first big change that happened in the offseason was the instant replay rule that gives managers the chance, once a game, to be able to have the umps go look at a screen and say if they screwed up the call. What do you think of that?
You know, baseball's a funny game. It's really the type of game where you see something new every day. And unlike football, in baseball, you can't really prepare for like every eventuality that you're going to wind up having. So what my fear is there's going to be some big play or some big call that gets made that the instant replay rule didn't really intend to be used for. And we might wind up running into long delays and misapplication of the rule. I'm afraid it's going to cause as much controversy as it tries to stop.
Now, what do you think of the catching rule, where the trying to protect the catcher?
Yeah, for years, you know, it's funny. I caught in high school. For years, I've always believed that catchers aren't really properly being taught how to block the plate. I actually think that's going to be the greatest positive of this rule. It forces the catcher to anchor himself outside of the baseline, whereas in the past they would stand directly in front of home plate and risk getting plowed over, giving the runner nowhere to go. So that's where I think the positive is going to be. I do fear at times that the runner, there may be backlash for the runner. This is being designed to help the catcher, but I'm afraid that there may be a situation where a runner winds up getting hurt and the rule will have to wind up being re-examined.
Now, so do you like one rule, or do you like all of them, or do you like none of them? These two rules, how do you feel about them?
For me, the deal with, what do you mean, between the catching and the...
Well, do you like both, do you agree with both these rules? Do you think they should be? Yes.
Instant replay and the catching?
Correct.
There are parts of the instant replay, you know, if you tick down the list of what they're going to be reviewing, there are parts of it that bother me. You're allowed to review a trap play in the outfield, but you're not allowed to review a trap play in the infield. So, you know, you take a look at that and think, you know, the reason it's being done is because on the infield, if a play is made, decisions need to be made by umpires very quickly, and what winds up happening on the base paths winds up getting affected immediately, whereas in the outfield there's a little more time. But boy, I don't want to be the manager that gets told, we know he trapped the ball, but since it was on the infield and we ruled it an out, we have to keep it an out. As far as the catching goes, I actually like the enforcement of the rule. I like the idea that the catcher is not going to be able to stand in front of home plate. Both from being a base runner's perspective, I hated having to try to find a piece of the plate to run to, and from the catcher's standpoint, not being in a position to be plowed over.
Well, there have been a couple instant replays in spring, and some of them have been very quick. So hopefully that'll help the game.
But if you've watched them, some of them have been quick, and some of them have been wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what my fear is. They'll look at what conclusive evidence is, and baseball is not the kind of game where it's easy to tell conclusive evidence.
Right. So who is your team to look out for in this next season?
All right. It might be wishful thinking, but I'm really pulling for the Kansas City Royals. They almost feel like the Pittsburgh Pirates of this year. They have a lot of young talent, and it's a pitching staff that's anchored by James Shields. And if we learned anything at all about the Tampa Bay Rays, if James Shields is the anchor of your pitching staff, you have a chance because he eats up so many innings and gives your bullpen, which, by the way, the Royals have a very good one. It gives them a real chance to rest.
Anytime you have big game, James, that's
yes. Well, he helps you in the way Pedro Martinez helped the Red Sox in the late '90s, and obviously, you know, I'm a little Red Sox centric on this stuff. He didn't just help you the day he pitched. You could empty the bullpen the day before, and you could empty the bullpen the day after. He gave you basically 3 days of having a chance to win.
Now, who's your player to look out for this season?
All right. I'm a homer, so I'm still going with a guy from the Red Sox, Xander Bogaerts. He kind of proved last year that the big stage doesn't faze him. He's actually already established among Major League umpires that he knows his strike zone, which is the big battle for rookies. But if I go away from Boston, the player that I think might do something epic might be Mike Trout. Trout has the capability to put up numbers like no one's ever seen before. He has the capability to put up a line of batting .300, hitting 30 doubles, 30 homers, 10 triples, 30 stolen bases, 100 runs, 100 RBIs, and then throw on top of that the potential for a Gold Glove. It could be the greatest single season ever made.
He is one of my favorite guys to watch play. He's so much fun.
He does everything right.
And he does it the right way,
yes.
too. So what's your big storyline heading into this season?
All right. The big storyline I hate to say it because we mentioned it before, we were discussing it earlier, and I don't think you know that this is what I was thinking when you were going to ask this question. I'm afraid the big storyline is going to be how epically instant replay fails. I think we're going to wind up running into situations where even when looking at the replay, both sides will still be in dispute over what the correct call is. You know, you go back to the Cardinals-Red Sox World Series of, was Will Middlebrooks in the baseline when the runner at third tried to run over him to score, and the way that the call wound up being made. And everyone, for the most part, agreed afterwards, you know, as terrible as it probably was the right call. Instant replay is going to give people so much more ammo to say, no, that was wrong. And both sides are going to have their own arguments. And I'm really afraid that instant replay ultimately might determine who makes the playoffs and who doesn't. And I don't know if that's the kind of Major League Baseball we want to have.
And that can cost money too. That can,
Yes.
you know, if a player does, you know, if he gets out at a certain point or if he gets robbed of a home run and it really is a home run, and not only just for the player's salary, but for the team making the playoffs and being able to contribute in the playoffs and be more valuable.
Yep.
So where do you see your Red Sox finishing this year, and who is their X factor?
All right, well, of course I have the Red Sox finishing first. The X factor, even though I know we were talking about Bogarts, I really feel like they're going to live and die by what their outfield's capable of doing. They got so much more out of Johnny Gomes, I think, than they ever thought they would, and I ever thought that they would. You know, a right-handed hitter hitting off righties because it happened to work in the postseason. I kind of fear that. I mean, Daniel Nava, for as successful as he's been at the Major League level, really hasn't owned the position of right field. And I think he might wind up owning it, although there's Victorino there when he's not healthy. You know, you have Gomes switching up in the outfield. I don't think Jackie Bradley Jr. is really ready for the big stage yet. And then, you know, Grady Sizemore's made of glass. You know, if he bumps into something, I'm worried that he's going to wind up on the disabled list. Even though he's, you know, shown that he had a good spring training, I think they're going to go as that outfield goes.
Let it be known, Grady Sizemore did run into a wall, and he's alive.
He did not break.
Which is a good thing. All right, so now where do you see my Giants finishing in the NL West, and what is their X factor?
Okay, I would love to say that I think that they're going to win. Unfortunately, I think they're going to finish second. I actually had initially figured they'd finish third, but with some of the injuries the Diamondbacks have sustained, I don't think the Diamondbacks can really make a legitimate run. I will say tongue-in-cheek, I think the only way that the Giants can wind up overtaking the Dodgers is two things. If the Panda in his contract year puts up some huge numbers, which he's capable of doing, and if Yasiel Puig runs into 2 extra outs every game, the Dodgers might wind up finding themselves losing 6 or 8 games that they probably should have won. I have a feeling that the Yasiel Puig situation is going to wind up playing a big role in how this pennant race comes down.
Well, they do have 4 outfielders, so they can shed one, and hopefully the Panda will get back to his 2009 days.
Yes.
So who are your award predictions? We'll start off with AL MVP.
Okay, AL MVP, I got Mike Trout. I think it's about time. I mean, Cabrera's won 2 in a row, and rightfully so. I mean, it would be hard. It was a toss-up between the two of them. I mean, when Cabrera won the MVP award, I mean, when his first time, he did it while winning the Triple Crown. And then he chased it again the second year, which would have been unprecedented. I can't remember the last time anyone went back-to-back MVP awards. Triple Crowns, I should say. But I just think what Trout's going to do this year is going to be amazing.
So who's your NL MVP?
All right, NL MVP, I got Hanley Ramirez. I think if Hanley Ramirez stays healthy, he's the one guy who you'll wind up looking at the numbers at the end of the year and saying, man, you can't deny this guy the MVP award. In fact, the funny thing is everyone so badly wanted to attribute the Dodgers' success at the second half of the year to Yasiel Puig. But if you look at it, Puig came around at the exact same time Hanley Ramirez got healthy. So I think he might win the MVP this year.
So who's your AL Cy Young?
Okay, going back for the homers, we're going to John Lester. John Lester has put up solid number. He's been their ace for years. I've wondered why he hasn't been higher in Cy Young votings, actually, from time to time. Usually has a stretch in the middle of the season or somewhere where he kind of falls out of the discussion, and then you have a Verlander or a Scherzer that kind of takes over. I think this might be the year that John Lester puts up 20 wins.
All right, so who is your NL Cy Young?
And you're going to hate this. I have to go with Kershaw. That's all he does. He wins Cy Young awards. I mean, I don't know a person on the planet who's comfortable hitting against him. He's going to lead the division and probably the league in strikeouts. He's probably going to win 20 games again this year, and he's probably going to wind up on a division winner.
The funny thing about Kershaw is the opening day they played, he gave up a run against the Diamondbacks. That was the first time he gave up a run on opening day.
On any of his opening day starts.
Which is ridiculous.
Yes.
All right, so who is your AL Rookie of the Year?
Okay. I think the AL Rookie of the Year, unfortunately, is going to come down to whether the voters consider some of these overseas players as rookies, which I know they always have, but more so than a player like a Xander Bogaerts. I think if I were to go with what a true rookie is of not having played at the highest level, I'd have to go with a Bogaerts. But I do believe that Jose Abreu out of Chicago, who I believe he came from Cuba. I'm not quite sure where he signed from. Or Tanaka, who's pitching for the Yankees. They have big-time experience and bona fide talent stepping right in. They might step in either one of those and win the Rookie of the Year, much the way Ichiro won the Rookie of the Year when he came from Japan.
They've said Abreu is just killing the ball lately. He's destroying it.
Ridiculous.
So who's your NL Rookie of the Year?
Okay. My NL Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go with the obvious choice, just from a speed factor, because you can't really slow down speed. Billy Hamilton, I think, has the potential to steal 100 bases this year, if he can get himself on base. That's the only thing that worries me. But I'm going to throw one out at you that I don't know how many people have really considered because of the probability he won't be called up until June, and that's a kid by the name of Javier Baez. He's a second baseman for the Chicago Cubs. He's actually a shortstop, but the problem is they already have a shortstop. What's the kid's name?
Starlin Castro.
Starlin Castro. And Castro's not going anywhere. This kid is so talented, though. He's got power that makes Ryne Sandberg look like a Punch and Judy hitter, that he really will ultimately probably come up, and they'll just find a place to play him. I don't think that it's going to wind up taking till June. As much as the Cubs want to hold him off for contract issues till June, I think we might see him sooner.
So who is your playoff prediction?
Okay. As in, who do I think is going to...
As in, who do you think is going to make the playoffs, and how do you think they're going to do?
All right. Well, obviously, I'm going with the Red Sox winning out of the AL East. I do think the Yankees, however, are going to wind up getting one of the wild cards, and I can't pick against Oakland. You know, as much as I'd like to think someone else would, but then Kansas City with the wild card, Detroit winning the division. I really think it's about time Detroit won one. I think they have all the pieces in place. They have the pitching. They have the power. They have everything that it takes to wind up winning it, and I'm thinking that from the American League. As much as I'd love to be a homer and stay with Boston, I think last year was kind of a miracle year, and I think Detroit's going to come out of there. As far as the National League, if they stay healthy, it's going to be hard to beat LA. I mean, I know that we saw last year a little bit of an implosion here and there, and you never know what you're going to get out of Kemp. And Puig, you never know what's going to happen with the Puig situation. But I just think there's too much there, and they have the money. If they need to sign somebody down the stretch, they can do it.
All right. This is Derek Jeter's final season. How do you think he will do?
I don't think it's going to go as he would like for it to have gone. I think he's going to get his share of big hits. You know, it won't be as many as he's had. I mean, we've seen that already over the course of the last few years. He used to be the person you did not want to pitch to, and now he's just another average ball player. I fear that he's going to wind up getting hurt again. I mean, I'm 41 years old. What is he, 38, 39?
Like
he's
that.
about my age.
Yeah.
I can't imagine playing 162 games at shortstop on a leg that was injured twice in a season.
How many games do you think he'll play?
I'd like to say 100. I don't know if he's going to get there.
Does he play in the playoffs or no?
Yes, and that is one thing I think they will try to do, because they're going to be very wary of it. If they can keep him healthy enough, and I hope that Girardi rests him, if they keep him healthy enough, they can have him set for the playoffs.
Do you think he'll have an okay season, or what?
I do. I mean, I think it'll be fine. I think he'll put up, a 275, 280 season. Maybe he'll go on a hot streak and come up with a better batting average than that. But I just think that the thing that made Jeter was, as a Red Sox fan, I never wanted that guy coming to the plate. I don't fear him at all anymore.
All right. How will the last couple years affect his legacy?
I don't think it'll affect it at all. When he made the flip against Oakland to get Giambi out at home plate in the playoffs, his legacy was secure. It was over. I mean, I was always a fan of Garciaparra, and I love to say that Garciaparra was the best of the three, of Alex Rodriguez, Garciaparra, and Jeter when they all came up together.
Right.
A-Rod came around to obviously put up bigger numbers, but now we all know why.
Right.
But when Derek Jeter made that flip, I actually turned to someone and said, all right, Jeter's better. I mean, he just is. There's something about him, that X factor about him, that makes him the best shortstop. Really, one of the best that's ever played the game.
And he may not we may not ever see a guy like Derek Jeter again, just by the way he handles himself and the way that he just. I mean, you never hear about Jeter doing anything really crazy.
He's really tried to live his life a lot of the way that Joe DiMaggio, I think, lived his life. He had a private life. There were other things that were going on, but he really did not want those things to take away from what he did on the field.
Now, going back to another shortstop, Ozzie Smith is going around the country with Budweiser, and he is trying to make opening day a national holiday. Obviously, I want that. I'm pretty sure you want that. What do you feel about that?
Well, the funny thing is, when you think of how many people wind up getting the okay from their bosses if they get tickets. I know that's the way it is in Boston. If you land opening day tickets in Boston, everyone knows you're going to opening day, and everyone's okay with it. I would love it if opening day was a national holiday. Games are on all day long. It's kind of a celebration of spring. To tell you the truth, I think Super Bowl Monday should also be a national holiday.
Yeah.
You do think in terms of what a sports environment we currently live in,
right?
And those things are celebrated. I mean, all the way down to the high school level, all the way down to the little league level. It'd be nice to have a day where everyone can just stay home and put on the television and watch all the games.
One thing would be nice if they put all the games kind of throughout the kind of what March Madness is doing right now, where instead of having 2 games, they have games starting at 11, going all the way to 10 or whatever, and just having them all at that time, all on that day, and make it easy. You can just flip back and forth.
I mean, imagine what the ratings would wind up being if it was a national holiday and ESPN covers Red Sox, Yankees, and then Cardinals, Cubs, and then LA, San Francisco. The whole country would wind up watching.
That'd be crazy. All right. Thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.
I'm Michael Flasspohler. He's Mr. Landry, and that's opening day baseball. Back to you.